Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and I want to come today with a big Phidarian Mathis update. Remember, he was a second-round pick in this most recent 2022 NFL draft. He was expected to be able to contribute a lot very early on this season. The emergence of John Ridgeway, who we stole from the Cowboys practice squad, has made things very interesting, and with Daron Payne in his situation, us trying to pay him long-term, recent second-round pick Phidarian Mathis, can't wait to see how they find a way to get him involved, because it looked like at times in preseason and even the little bit of time that he played against the Jaguars in that first game before he got hurt, it looked like he was showing a little something. So we may have crazy depth on the defensive line. So I definitely want to take a look at his update on Rehab. Zach Selby of Commanders.com gave a big update after Julie Donaldson spoke with him in a video interview. Also, the Commanders have sought permission to talk to 49ers assistant head coach, running backs coach Anthony Lynn. We're going to talk about why that may be a good idea, why that may be a bad idea, and also the pattern that I'm starting to see in a lot of these coaches that we're interviewing for our next offensive coordinator position. Also, Rivera and the Commanders have canceled their inaugural Caribbean fan cruise, so I'm going to give y'all the update on that as well. So kind of a Rico report, but also two main topics I want to talk about: Phidarian Mathis and Anthony Lynn. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every Sunday for the call-in live show where we talk about everything. It could be Commanders, it could be draft, free agency, Sam Howell, franchise quarterbacks, Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, whatever you want to. It could be about NBA, whatever. So make sure you pull up. And then, of course, like I said, man, I have so much content. I was just so busy. I wasn't home until really late yesterday, so I wasn't able to get a video out yesterday. But like I said, I have so much content to come out with that I'm working on. I really need to be making like 2-3 videos a day, man. So make sure y'all stay tuned, man. Without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so let's start with the Phidarian Mathis update. Zach Selby says the Washington Commanders had avoided defensive tackle with Ioannidis and Tim Settle moving on to different teams this offseason, and it was expected that second round pick Phidarian Mathis had the skill set to fill it. Almost everything on Mathis's college resume pointed to that conclusion. He had the size, mentality, and ability to clog up double teams that Washington was looking for. And defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio even went as far as to say that Mathis was our third legitimate tackle body that we have in the building. Back in May, Washington did not get the chance to see what Mathis could add to the rotation during the regular season. Unfortunately, because he played a total of 4 snaps, he suffered a season-ending injury in week 1 after those 4 snaps against the Jacksonville Jaguars week 1, and since then fans have not seen much of him. During the Commanders locker room clean-out day, Mathis provided an update on how his recovery has gone over the past 5 months, and everything was going according to plan. He said, quote, "I've been here the whole time," Mathis said of rehabbing in the facility. "I trust the trainers in there. We've been making great progress," unquote. Mathis sustained his injury on the first play of the Jaguars' second drive. The reports were that the second round pick tore his meniscus, which could take up to 6 months to heal. Fortunately, Mathis was expected to make a full recovery, and it seems like he's on the way to doing that. Mathis said that the Commanders trainers helped him get healthy quicker than he really thought, but it's still a long process and was still a struggle. And basically, at first, he was a little hesitant about it. It was hard for him to accept the fact that what happened, but he said after learning to trust the training staff, he really started to make some real progress with his rehab, and I'm really excited about that. And basically, all in all, it sounds like he should be ready to go for everything we need to do in the offseason when it comes to OTAs, mini camps, all of that. Phidarian Mathis should be 100% for all of that. Ron Rivera even spoke on it. He said, quote, "He's been doing great. He comes in every morning, gets his work in. He's pretty much done with the basic rehab. Now it's all just maintenance. But I got a chance to really watch him work out and see him developing and working on his explosiveness, his overall strength, core strength, all of that. I've gotten a lot of good reports on him as far as those things are concerned," unquote. So it basically sounds like, say if we were in the playoffs right now, Phidarian Mathis may have been healthy enough to play. Not 100% sure, but again, that just shows how optimistic we could be about him being 100% heading into off-season workouts and things like that. So I'm excited, man. And again, like I already said, I mean, the emergence of John Ridgeway, us trying to figure out how we're going to pay Daron Payne long-term, and that's one video I'm working on. All of the different situations and scenarios for this whole Daron Payne situation. All of the ways that we can handle it and the positives and negatives for each way. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But with all of this great defensive line talent, specifically interior defensive line, again, John Ridgeway came out of nowhere. We didn't draft him. He was a 2022 draft pick, but the Cowboys drafted him, I believe, in the 5th round, and then for some reason felt like he wasn't even worthy of making their 53-man roster at a certain point in the season. Tried to sneak him onto the practice squad, and then we stole him off that practice squad mid-season. And then he came in and contributed in a major way. I mean, out here putting wrestling moves on people mid-game and making it his profile picture on Twitter. So paying Deron Payne long-term, keeping John Ridgeway after the way he played this season, exceeding all expectations, and then Phidarian Mathis coming back. This interior defensive line, and of course with Jonathan Allen leading the way, should be better moving forward than it ever was. Even with Tim Settle and Ioannidis off the bench that we thought was great depth, this is even better depth. So I'm really excited about Phidarian Mathis coming back fully healthy and us finally get to see what he could do, because when you get season-ending injuries like that week 1, it's almost as if Phidarian Mathis is an extra pick in this 2023 upcoming draft, because we didn't really get to see him in 2022. So whoever we end up picking with all of our picks in the 2023 draft in April, Phidarian Mathis almost feels like he counts towards that as far as on the field goes. So I'm really excited about that, man. Next up, Nikki Javala reported that the Commanders have sought permission to talk to 49ers assistant head coach and running backs coach Anthony Lynn, according to source. But a formal request will be made after the 49ers game on Sunday, so the focus remains on their game. So the 49ers are aware that we want to do it, but we haven't made the official formal request, I guess, in writing, however that process goes. We haven't done that just yet. We're waiting until after the game to not interrupt anything they got going on. Basically, just not to be rude and not to burn any bridges. Remember, this is the same Anthony Lynn that served as the Chargers head coach from 2017 through 2020. And I mean, as you've noticed, there's a pattern here. Assistant head coaches, running back coaches. If you're an assistant head coach / running back coach at the same time, you're probably going to end up getting a Commanders interview at some point in this hiring cycle. Again, I still prefer Thomas Brown the most, but let's dive into Anthony Lynn's track record in his history first. Well, first of all, remember we have already interviewed former Browns and Giants head coach Pat Shurmur. Then we interviewed current QB's coach on the Washington Commanders, Ken Zampese. Then we interviewed Falcons QB's coach Charles London, who also is the running games coordinator and used to be the running backs coach and things like that. Then we interviewed Dolphins associate head coach, running backs coach Eric Stuteville. And then my favorite candidate that's available, we interviewed Rams assistant head coach, tight ends coach Thomas Brown most recently. Got a little bit of a pattern going with those head coach assistants and running backs coach. Just to take it all the way back, Anthony Lynn was a backup running back / special teams player during his 8-year career in the NFL. He has 2 Super Bowl rings for being a part of the Denver Broncos teams that won back-to-back championships in 1997 and 1998. Lynn's coaching career began with the Broncos as special teams assistant in 2000. Then Lynn joined the Jacksonville Jaguars as their running backs coach 3 years later, and then he held the same job with the Cowboys, Cleveland Browns, and the Jets. And then he added assistant head coach to his resume after 3 years with the Jets. And then he got his first offensive coordinator job with the Buffalo Bills, and he was their interim head coach for 1 game after Rex Ryan was fired. And then he was hired as the head coach for the San Diego Chargers the following year, and he held that job for 4 seasons, had a 33-31 record, and a 1-1 record in the playoffs following their 12-4 season in 2018. And then he spent 1 season as the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions in 2021, but was not retained after they mutually agreed to part ways. Then he joined Kyle Shanahan's coaching staff last year as an assistant head coach, running backs coach, replacing former Redskins running backs coach Bobby Turner. Now, he does have a very rich history, extensive history, as far as being a running backs coach around the NFL. And he has a little bit of experience of being a head coach, but he's technically only been an offensive coordinator for 2 seasons. So for him to be the older, more experienced guy, not the young, bright, creative offensive mind like a Thomas Brown or potentially like a Charles London or something like that, he's that older veteran guy that has a lot of experience, has been everywhere, that's done everything. But at the same time, he's only been an offensive coordinator for 2 years in his career. And even when he was a head coach, he had Ken Wisenhunt as his offensive coordinator. And then he also had Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni as their wide receivers coach, and the Eagles offensive coordinator Shane Steichen as his QB's coach on that staff. That staff was crazy because Nick Sirianni is doing a really good job with the Eagles as their head coach. And then Shane Steichen gets a lot of the credit for the development of Justin Herbert, his rookie season that he had. And then also turning Jalen Hurts into who he is right now. I can admit, I was not a big Jalen Hurts fan coming out out of college. And even after that amazing Saints game he had where he made his NFL debut, and even after that, I just wasn't that big of a fan. But Shane Steichen has turned Jalen Hurts into something serious, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. That's why he was one of my favorite options out there, but I already knew he probably wasn't going to take a lateral move to come to us, go from offensive coordinator on the Eagles and how well they're playing to becoming an offensive coordinator over here in this chaotic situation. But Shane Steichen was one of my top 3 favorite options out there, impossible or realistic. But yeah, man, those are the type of guys that Anthony Lynn had on his coaching staff while he was a head coach. So it's just like, how much did he even do while he was there, honestly? But Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew have made it very clear that they do want to run the ball a lot, and if Anthony Lynn is good at anything, that's his thing. But he doesn't have a lot of experience calling plays, and I mean, you could say whatever you want to say about Scott Turner, but I mean, he was a good play designer, pretty decent scheme and all of that, but his problem was calling plays, and that's the reason why he got fired. So to bring in another guy that doesn't have a lot of play calling experience specifically, or doesn't have a good track record of it at least, is pretty interesting. Now, Thomas Brown, my favorite candidate remaining, also doesn't have that, but if Sean McVay loves you that much and views you as a potential head coach and all of that type of stuff, you gotta have something special in you, and the way he rose from tight ends coach to assistant head coach in a year is ridiculous. The man is only 2 years older than Matthew Stafford and already getting interviews from the Texans as a head coach. Please bring him in as an offensive coordinator. But we're not talking about Thomas Brown right now. We're talking about Anthony Lynn, and he's a very intriguing option. Definitely not one of my favorites, but it also doesn't sound like a terrible idea. I mean, honestly, anybody that's available right now that we've interviewed, nobody sounds like a terrible idea. A lot of them sound like mid or blah, or, you know, I'm not excited about that, but none of them just sound like straight up terrible. The only reason I feel like bringing in a older veteran offensive coordinator is pointless is because this upcoming season is probably just one of those seasons, like a sacrifice season. We're just gonna experiment, we're gonna try stuff. We're not really going in with a lot of expectations with all of the chaos, new ownership. Ron Rivera's possibly last year coaching here, potentially ending up with a new GM going into 2024 as well. So it's just kind of like, let's just try stuff and see if it works. Let's try, in my opinion, a younger, bright, creative, offensive-minded type of guy like Thomas Brown. At least swing for the home run. If you miss, you miss. This upcoming season, what's the point of playing it safe in anyway? I like Pat Shurmur, especially as far as QB development, but bringing in an experienced guy because he's safe but doesn't offer a lot of potential, it just seems so pointless to me in this whole process. Because why are we trying so hard to salvage this upcoming season where playing it safe? I feel like we're just going to end up right where we were this past season, probably missing the playoffs by like a game or two, and then not having a good enough draft pick to get a franchise-changing player potentially, especially like at quarterback or something like that, not even being close enough to be able to try to get a Caleb Williams. I prefer to go with the high ceiling, low floor, boomer bust potential type of guy like a Thomas Brown, because if he ends up being the genius that Sean McVay thinks he is, now you have the next potential Kyle Shanahan, the next Sean McVay, the next Shane Steichen, the next Darrell Bevell or Mike McDaniels. You have the next guy at offensive coordinator, or even potentially head coach if the new owner likes him enough to promote him to head coach. Or if he fails, hey, this season is probably going to end up being a sacrifice season anyway. What do you really lose? But that's just how I feel about the situation. Now, moving on. I know I was supposed to be talking about Anthony Lynn. I ended up talking about Thomas Brown almost as much, but man, I'm just really passionate about bringing in like a Thomas Brown type of guy. Not even just him specifically. And let's start with the, I guess, kind of bad news first and then go to the good news for the end of the video. The Washington Commanders have canceled their inaugural Caribbean fan cruise that was organized through First Class Cruises and scheduled for March 23rd through April 1st. Per a team spokesperson, quote, "Out of deep concern for our fans' experience, we are in the process of canceling the fan cruise because of significant changes made by First Class Cruises to the original offering, including cruise line destinations and dates. Our fans are a priority, and we are working to ensure we can reward those who signed up with a great experience with our alumni to thank them for their loyalty and commitment to our team and legends." So it sounds like it doesn't have anything to do with all of the chaos going around the organization and new owner and them trying to keep a tight budget because of the potential new ownership situation. It seems like it's on the cruises end. Apparently they made significant enough changes to where the Commanders felt like it wasn't even worth it to go through with it anymore. And then lastly, Washington Commanders head coach Ron Rivera was named the finalist for the NFL Salute to Service Award presented by USAA. The other two finalists are San Francisco 49ers tight end George Kittle and Cincinnati Bengals tight end Hayden Hurst. So it's Ron Rivera as head coach and then two tight ends currently playing in the NFL. The recipient of the award will be recognized at NFL Honors, which will take place during Super Bowl week, February 9th in Arizona. And you can watch the presentation on NBC, NFL Network, and Peacock. USAA will contribute $25,000 in the award recipients honor to the official aid societies representing each of the military branches. The NFL will match USAA's donation of $25,000, which will be donated to the award recipient's military charity of choice. The award recipient will receive a specially designed military challenge coin, recognizing their commitment to the military. In what has become a long-standing tradition, challenge coins are presented to members of the military community to demonstrate membership, recognize excellence, and boost morale. So I'm rooting for Rivera to win that, man. Y'all know how serious Rivera is about the military. I mean, he even brings in military guys to training camp and practices and things like that to motivate everybody. So Rivera does not play about that type of stuff, man. So I really hope he wins. For sure. Good luck out there, Rivera. And that's the end of this video. Make sure I get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. And as always, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose names are scrolling on the screen right now. Let me know how you feel about Anthony Lynn being a potential offensive coordinator candidate. Again, we haven't interviewed him. We've only requested the interview. The 49ers could actually block it if they want to. We'll see, especially if the 49ers end up beating the Eagles, like a lot of us are probably rooting for anyway. And then also let me know how you feel about Phidarian Mathis and his potential and how he'll fit in with the defensive line. Because if we pay Deron Payne long term, we have John Ridgeway and Phidarian Mathis and Jonathan Allen. That is insane depth right there with everybody fully healthy. And I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.